it's not very good for some of the high streets. What's going on? Bad news for shops. Sean's going to take us through what is happening. Morning.
Morning. Yeah, there's lots going on at the minute. I mean, not necessarily here, but the issue is later on in the day, even when the shops are open, it's still might not be as busy as people would like. One quick example, this Marks & Spencer closed at the weekend, and you can see here there are so many other M&Ss around in the area that the company have decided they just don't need one on a high street. So there are a couple of things that are out this morning, a couple of reports that represent the issues going on. One is consumer spending. That was down in July compared to last year, and people thought after the heat wave, the World Cup, that actually might carry on a little bit. That didn't happen, it seems, so say Visa, the credit and debit card company. And then the other one is footfall, the amount of people hitting our high streets. That is down as well. And we can have a chat to a couple of people about what's going on here. We've got Jonathan and Diane with us this morning. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Diane, start with you. I mean, these figures about footfall have come from your company.
Yes.
You look at this.
Yes.
What is fundamentally going on here? Because it seems like a long stretch of time where people aren't coming to the high street as much as they were.
Well, there's a lot of overstatement around the death of the high street. The high street itself, i.e. the external environment, the type of place we're in Northampton, is actually fairly resilient. Footfall dropped by just 0.8% last month. So it's not a huge drop at all, but there is a long-term decline across the UK because some of us are spending our money online, so that's inevitable. Shopping centres, the closed malls that we go into, the nice enclosed managed environments, they're struggling a little bit more. They saw a decline of 3.4% in footfall, and that's because they've put a lot of their reliance on the big stores like M&S and like House of Fraser that are undergoing trading challenges.
Interesting. Jonathan, bring you in here. Just, you're in charge of the City Council here. What do you do when M&S and BHS just next door decide to close their stores in such big buildings?
Well, I think the point is town centres are changing, aren't they? And we're very sorry to see M&S go, naturally. They've been a landmark retailer in the town for a long, long time. Many people will miss them. But actually, as a town or as a nation, we're not spending enough money in them. We seem to want to do different things. And what we have to do here in Northampton is that evolution that we just heard from Diane. Town centres do change. We have a lot of assets in Northampton in terms of history and heritage and culture and so on. For a long time we've tried to compete, if you like, as a retail town with some very strong retail offers. We have Milton Keynes down the road, we have Rushden Lakes. We need to give people a different reason to come to Northampton. The raw material is there, it's our job to put it on display.
We'll talk about that much more over the morning. Thanks Diane, thanks Jonathan. Before we go though, some retailers are doing well. We've got Sports Direct, Poundland down here. Quick question here, bring James in. James, you're a man about innovation, that's what you look at. Just want, Sports Direct, Poundland doing well, but what's needed for the whole high street to do well?
We need a whole new industry, high-tech, really attractive in terms of store design, store merchandise, and the whole attitude and conduct of the management has to change. We're not getting any innovation here. That's why people aren't coming. It's no good blaming poor footfall for the crisis in British retailing. We need more investment. We need an imaginative attitude. When Debenhams opened in the 80s, and now it's in trouble and may yet be taken over, it was a complete palace to fun, and people looked at each other on the escalators. Right. All done in white icing cake. Wonderful. Where's that here?
So we need more palaces of fun. We'll talk about more where they might be a little bit later. James, thank you. Lots to talk about, lots going on the high street, lots of things for these retailers to consider. That's what we'll be trying to get through over the rest of the morning.
Thank you for that, Sean. We should be back and can bring us up to date. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, yes I can. I'm outside the Matchbox Cafe now, which is just on one of the side streets off the main high street where I was a little bit earlier. You can see down there. So spending and the amount of people going to our high streets is really important for all the independent businesses as well. Now, you can see this morning, like down the high street here, that lots of shops closed at the moment, but even when they're all open, there's still not that many people coming as there were in previous years. So footfall, as they call it, is down. And also spending in July was down 0.9% when compared to the July the year before. That despite the heat wave and the World Cup, that didn't quite sustain through the next month. Now, what does that mean for the high street? I'm going to have a chat to our guests who we've been feeding finally this morning. Got Diane and James here with me. Morning to you both. Morning. You're all sorted. Diane, start with you. These figures from you this morning at Springboard about footfall, people hitting the high street. Why is the trend continuing to be us going to the high street less and less?
Well, over the longer term, of course, a proportion of our spending is now online. So the ONS reported at the end of last year that we're around 18% of all our spend is online. So that's about £1 in £5, of course, of our household budgets is now online. So inevitably, that means that fewer people will be on the high street. But having said that, the decline that we're seeing is lessening. We're seeing just a 1% decline on average in our high streets. So it's not a huge amount. It seems to be levelling off now. The key area of decline is shopping centres. They're really feeling the pinch, and that's because there's trading challenges for our bigger retailers, and it's those retailers that tend to dominate in our shopping centres.
Interesting. James, you were talking a little bit earlier. You look at innovation a lot. You were talking about the Palace of Fun, Debenhams back in the 80s. I mean, you can see a bit of innovation in a cafe on the side street like this one here. What more needs to be done?
Well, everything that this cafe is doing, you might or might not like the art, but it is innovative, it's colourful, it's attractive, it's different, and the big stores like M&S that's just closed should be doing that in fantastic electronic displays, cooking lessons, 3D printing, and, you know, a barrel of laughs in terms of what their employees offer every customer. You know, interest, responsiveness, innovation. We're not getting that in the high street. It's a failure of nerve, it's an aversion to risk, and it's a refusal to take technology seriously. There's not enough research and development, very little at all, in fact, done by the major high street chains. It's not up to somebody else to do that. They should be doing that to make themselves more exciting.
Interesting. Cooking lessons in M&S. Thanks, James. Thanks, Diane. We'll have a quick chat with Bing Wan just before we go. Bing, hello.
Good morning.
Is this mine?
It is for you.
Well, blimey, right. We'll get into that in a minute. Bing, you've been open a few months now here. M&S was open Saturday but shut forever on Sunday. How much of a difference did that make?
It made a big difference. Even with the impacts of only one day of being closed, the footfall of the passing traffic has been quite impacted quite a lot.
And in terms of business generally, you've been open a few months now. How are things? Because we saw spending was down in July, fewer people hitting the high street.
Overall, business actually is increasing for us anyway. So yes, we have improved, and hopefully from the business, from the closure of M&S, hopefully we can gain some business from that.
Interesting. And what's the big thing for you when people come in here talking about stuff? What's the main thing you need to be going right?
It's just to be innovative and just keep moving the business forward and just sort of gain with the people's interest of what they want.
And be honest, what have I got here?
It's a luxury hot chocolate just for you.
Luxury hot chocolate, thank you, with many, many calories in it. Lovely. I'll be getting into that. Thanks, Bing. Talking much more over the morning. We've also got Jonathan with us as well from the council. We'll be talking to him a bit later about what town centres can actually do to try and improve things when we see fewer people hitting the high street.
Oh, there's a lot of things in that coffee. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you.
Tricky one really, because you can look behind me and you've got some of the shops that are doing really well. You've got Poundland, Sports Direct buying House of Fraser last week. We clearly know that they're doing well, but overall these reports that are out this morning, spending down in July, fewer people hitting the high street, makes it hard for high streets like Northampton. I've had an M&S close at the weekend as well. I've actually got Jonathan with me, who's leader of the council here. Jonathan, morning.
Morning, sure.
Let's have a wander down here and just have a look. I mean, you've got an M&S closed here, a little bit further down BHS closed. How much of a challenge when somebody like this leaves a town centre like Northampton, is it?
Oh, well, it's a massive challenge, of course, isn't it? But town centres are changing, aren't they? And I think what the people of Northampton are saying, and what people are saying all over the country, is they no longer come into town centres to shop in big shops. We're fortunate to have a dialogue going with the new owners of the old BHS location, and we're hopeful they'll bring forward something really exciting. But it's unlikely to be a big town centre retail store. People want other things. There may be a bit of residential, a bit of sort of general leisure use,
well, also,
and so on.
Just looking at this up here, and you've got a map like that where it shows all the other M&Ss. This is why they don't have it here. How much of a blow for people in Northampton is it when we've seen lots of people coming up and looking at this sign this morning, only closed yesterday.
Yes.
It's been here 100 years.
Yes, indeed. So it's a real shame. I think it's two things. One, it's in terms of what people come to town for, because traditionally they would come to M&S. Also, it is to some extent a badge of the high street to have an M&S, so it's a shame not to. But we have got to give them other reasons to come to Northampton. That's basically what it is.
So
town centres have changed over the ages.
What might change?
We've got three main areas of activity. One is environment, so we're improving the environment and the cleanliness. You've seen evidence of that this morning with the cleaning that's going on, and we're also fining people if they drop litter. The public say to me they don't want to be paying to pick other people's litter up, so we fine them now.
We've seen a lot of street cleaners
we're
going
improving
around,
that environment. We're doing a huge amount for rough sleepers in this town, offering them support they need, but therefore making a more pleasant environment for people to come to.
That's been a big issue for us to talk about this morning. We're going to have to leave it there, Jonathan, but thank you very much, because we're going to have to talk about what else can be done on the high streets, because big issues here. I mean, it's getting busy. You can tell. Lots of cars and vehicles coming by now. We'll have a chat to James and Diane about this, because it's not just an issue for Northampton. Morning to you both again. Diane, just looking at number of people, I mean, lots of people about on Northampton High Street now. It's getting busier, but overall, you guys are saying that not as many of us are hitting the high street as before. But
That's true.
what's the main thing that needs to change from your point of view to get people in?
There needs to be much more variety and much more experience around retail. What consumers are demanding now is experience. We can buy functionally on the internet, so if we want to buy conveniently and stuff day to day, we can do that in the comfort of our own home. When we go out to retail destinations, we want to enjoy it and we want to have fun and we want to experience things we don't get online. So that's all about creating experience, and retailers have got to work really hard at doing that. The same old, just selling stuff doesn't work anymore.
No, and that's what we've heard a little bit from James. We've had, palaces of fun, cooking lessons at M&S. But if there's one thing, you look, high street like this would be familiar to lots of people, James. One thing, you look at innovation. What's the one thing you'd do?
More exciting products. Where are the graphene dresses that adjust for the differences in temperatures that we've experienced in the last month? That flash displays saying, I want to meet you, Sean, and do all the things that electronic textiles can do. M&S isn't offering that. Shops are not nearly exciting enough in their decor, in their lighting. They don't use virtual reality, augmented reality. All these new technologies are around, but they've put more emphasis on mergers and acquisitions, because it's much easier to take over another boring shop chain than it is to change the whole face of shopping. We need a whole new industry based on research, development and ambition.
And that'll be one thing for us to watch. Thank you to you both. Sports Direct, of course, bought House of Fraser last week. Sports Direct got a third stake in Debenhams. So all our high streets could be changing. Will we have virtual reality in every shop like James wants? That might be a bit of a different task. Can't quite see that happening just yet here, but they're making improvements.
Graphene dresses indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Does that make you go shopping on the high street, a graphene dress?
I would certainly go and look at what it looks like.
Might not buy one, but you'd have a
I
look.
might try it on though, because I don't even, you know what I mean?
And you could pop in a shop next door and buy something else while you're there. Maybe that is the future.
So talking about High Street, in a few minutes, we'll be joined by the bosses of the Pound Stretcher chain.